The economics of reducing income taxes comes down to Missourians keeping more of their earnings, businesses spending more, and encouraging outside companies to open their businesses in Missouri. So it might come as a surprise to know that there was a lot of resistance to reducing the income tax.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of resistance, and you would think it would be a lot easier with the supermajorities that we have. But it's critical for our state to cut the income tax. The income tax is destructive towards economic growth. There's just too many of them that are concerned about cutting a single dollar of revenue out of state government. Also, the education lobby was very much opposed to any kind of reforms to our tax code. And that was also a bit concerning. There's been 11 states to implement new income taxes over the last 50 years. 11 out of 11 lost population, lost gross state product, meaning they produce less stuff in their state, and wages went down relative to the United States as a whole. And so the income tax is absolutely destructive towards economic growth.
What surprised you the most about the process of reducing taxes?
I think one of the biggest things that surprised me is how people view taxes. Within the Capitol, people view taxes as their money, and so any tax cut is seen as giving up some of their money. If you get outside of the Capitol, people remember that those taxes are really the people's money, and reducing taxes is just giving them more of their own money that they can pay or they can spend and invest as they see fit. You know, obviously in our state, we have to fund things like roads and bridges and higher education, and so we want to show them a path forward on how we can let citizens keep more of their own money while simultaneously funding those important core functions.
Well, it surprised me as a guy that likes to keep more of my own money. It surprised me how willing other people were to spend that money before I got a chance to spend it myself. But I think what we have here is a long line of folks that have their own special interests, have their own desires of how they think tax dollars ought to be spent. And given the fact that we already have record amounts of revenue going into Jefferson City, they've had it pretty good these past few years. But when I got elected on a message that folks didn't believe that we needed more government in our lives, that we needed more spending in our lives. The message was they wanted some of that reduced a little bit.
Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt was proud to sponsor the first tax cut in Missouri in 100 years when he was a state senator in 2014. We spoke with the state's Attorney General about all this and more in Springfield.
I was surprised at the intensity of the opposition and the idea of allowing people to keep more of their own money. I don't get that. I've never understood that. I just believe that people know better how to spend their money than government does. But we summoned, I think, the courage to move forward on behalf of the people of Missouri. And I think what it's done now is set a trajectory. It's a model for moving forward with continuing to lower that tax burden for individuals and families and small businesses, and that's the right path for Missouri to be headed down. There's still a lot more work to do, but I'm confident that some of the things that we've taken on, including the first tax cut in 100 years, sets us on a different path.
Todd Richardson was a state representative in 2014 and became Speaker of the House in 2015. His message to critics of tax cuts is that Missouri needs to create a situation in which you grow your way into success.
The conversation about tax reform seems to always devolve into a zero-sum game, a choice between investing in our priorities or cutting taxes. And if you look at the experience in other states, if done right, that's not the choice you're really making. But in Jefferson City, so often the conversation gets distilled down to, are you in favor of public education? Are you in favor of tax reform? And I really don't think that's a very honest way to frame the debate. Certainly, there are ways that you could reform taxes and cut taxes that would prevent the state from doing it. But if you do it right and you do it responsibly, there's no reason that you can't have both. People use this line all the time that you can't cut your way to prosperity. The truth is you can't tax your way to prosperity either. What you have to try to do is create the kind of environment where you can grow your way to prosperity.
Dr. Art Laffer is a world-renowned economist and, of course, the man behind the famous Laffer curve. Dr. Laffer was one of the architects behind the President Reagan tax cuts in 1982. After those tax cuts passed, the U.S. economy grew 12% between January of 1983 and June of 1984. He was also one of President Trump's economic advisors during his successful 2016 campaign. Dr. Laffer applauded the efforts of the Missouri legislature in 2014 and emphasized that government spending is taxation.
What a great legislature you had. Now, when that bill was passed, your then Governor Jay Nixon vetoed it. Your legislature was so cool because they passed the bill over his veto. How's that for really understanding what's going on? I mean, Governments don't create resources, they redistribute resources. So whenever the government spends, it's taken from someone and given to someone else. It's called economics math. Whenever you redistribute income, you always reduce total income. That's the theorem. And the limit function of this theorem, which is really cool, is if you were to achieve a total redistribution of income, there will be no income whatsoever. I will stipulate that everyone will come out equal at zero. That is math. It's not ideology, it's not politics, and nothing. So all of these people who vote for the redistribution of income have not a clue that what they're doing is voting for poverty. They're voting for a decline in real incomes, and there's no way around the math. That's where it is.
Thanks for tuning in. To learn more about how the tax cuts impact you, visit MissouriBestMidwest.com.